Hi, I'm John Mitchell, and this is the second of 7 short videos introducing a new vision of leadership and culture for business, government and the professions, a vision embodied in the Mitchell model. In the first video, we saw how the Mitchell model articulates 9 contexts, from the psychological through the individual and organizational to the governmental, applying in each a consistent scale of 6 levels of quality. We also had a first glimpse of how the model includes, transcends and integrates other models, creating a unique and simple practical development tool. In this second video, we'll focus in depth on Context 1, the context of the individual leader operating within a framework of 4 core relationships based on decision-making authority. These correspond to the so-called 360 set of relationships, which in a sense are well known, and yet, as we'll see, have untapped potential for understanding and developing leadership responsibility and interactions. In video 1, we saw how qualitative growth and decay in leadership and culture can be articulated and understood in relation to awareness and constructive action, defining growth as balanced increases in awareness and constructive action, and decay as a loss or falling away of awareness, constructive action, or both. We also identified 6 fundamental levels of awareness and constructive action, 3 negative levels and 3 positive, and saw that in principle the process of growth is a process of including and transcending a lower level in order to reach a higher level. Let's now address the specific context of the individual leader within his or her personal context of 360 relationships, and see how the 6 levels can be applied here in terms of the broad responsibility that is felt and acted upon at each level. We'll start by recalling the generic descriptors of each level as presented in video 1, with the ascending positive levels of constructive passivity, constructive dynamism, and constructive inclusion, and the descending negative levels of destructive passivity, destructive dynamism, and destructive exclusion. How is individual leadership responsibility felt and acted upon at each level? In level +1, constructive passivity, the underlying responsibility felt and acted upon, whether consciously or not, is to preserve the past. Decisions are made primarily on the basis of precedent in response to closed or yes-no questions. If there is something called strategy, it will focus mainly on tactical activity, and if it's updated from time to time, this will consist of simply tweaking previous tactics. The level +1 leader's sense of self-esteem comes primarily from a notion of doing things correctly. As long as there's no change in the external environment, level +1 leadership can survive. When external circumstances do change, level +1 passes easily to level -1, where the responsibility is felt as to defend the past and to struggle for survival. This may succeed initially. Sooner or later, it will likely lead towards the politicking and crisis of levels -2 and -3, until, through a cultural change that may also necessitate a structural change, a leader at level +2 takes over, who feels and acts on a responsibility to generate change and is able to bring a fresh, future-oriented focus. Part of the role of the new level +2 leader may be to continue to make structural changes that initially undermine the culture, so that there is oscillation between +2 and -2. Eventually, level +3 can be established, either through a further change of leadership or by the developmental growth of the level +2 leader to level +3. An alternative scenario is that the defensiveness of level -1 becomes personal, descending to level -2 as the leader becomes more active and dynamic in hanging on to the status quo. If this continues further, level -3 is reached, in which both the leader and those under his or her authority become slaves to the service of the leader's ego. The responsibility felt and acted upon at level +3 is quite different. To be of service to others. In a moment we'll go into detail on how this sense of responsibility translates into the conduct of the 360 relationships at level +3. First, it's important to emphasize two key points. We have to remember that level +3 includes and transcends level +2, which in turn includes and transcends level +1, and indeed the 3 minus levels. This means, for example, that it's not possible to reach level +3 without first mastering level +2 as an agent of change. We therefore have to guard against assuming we are at level +3 simply because the theoretical aspects of it resonate with us. To understand this danger more fully, it can help to view the 6 levels in a different format, from which we can see that it's possible to have a high theoretical awareness that is not connected to practice, or alternatively to have a high level of constructive action without the corresponding awareness. For example, practices that have been imitated or copied without the corresponding understanding being developed. So, level +1 can be seen in this way, with awareness and action not joined. In level +2, there is a closer connection. Only in level +3 do theory and practice become integrated. These aspects are critical when it comes to creating effective development processes, as we'll see in video 6. How does the core sense of being of service pan out in the 360 relationships? In the relationship upwards with the boss or other higher authority, the responsibility will be felt as to contribute fully, and this will be clearly defined and felt both in terms typically of financial contribution and also of cultural contribution. Performance and accountability in both these areas will be regularly reviewed and updated, whether formally or informally. The responsibility felt and acted upon downwards is to create and sustain the physical, mental and emotional environment in which people contribute fully in a way that fulfills their potential. The responsibility felt and acted upon at peer level is to build trust and collaboration, while that felt in external relationships is to enhance reputation, whether of oneself or of the organization, or both. The Mitchell model is unique in clarifying the 15 archetypal leadership interactions inherent in the 360 relationships, and in revealing how these are conducted at the different levels of leadership quality and responsibility. The model identifies 8 archetypal interactions in the downwards relationship, 2 each in the upwards and peer group relationships, and 3 further archetypal interactions in the external relationship. One of the stark differences that emerges as we study the 15 archetypal interactions is that they do not all appear at all of the 6 levels, and many are only found in the positive levels. Within the positive levels, there are important differences in how the interactions are conducted, and these differences provide a main area of focus in effective approaches to the qualitative development of leadership and culture. Let's look briefly at 2 simple examples. Perhaps the best known of the 8 downwards interactions is the delegation meeting. This meeting and the motivations for it differ very noticeably between levels +1, +2, and +3. In level +1, the leader typically delegates as a reaction, perhaps to time pressure or to personal preference or convenience. There'll typically be a tendency to micromanage by giving specific instructions about how to carry out the task, making sure that this is done in the leader's preferred way or the organization's established way. If there's a goal to be achieved through the delegated work, this may not be articulated or communicated. At level +2, the leader will be looking to empower through delegation and to push decision-making down to the lowest level possible. This will typically be done in the context of achieving a goal or a change, and the leader will make sure these are understood and then give the delegatee the power to think through the how, so that not only the activity but also the thinking around it is delegated. there's also active follow-up, which is an important part of the risk management in delegating challenges that are new. In delegating, as in other areas, level +3 includes and transcends level +2. The level +3 leader will look to connect delegation and empowerment with learning and development, creatively connecting work experiences to meaningful and productive challenges through adopting a coaching style of leadership. Another very well-known leadership interaction in the relationship downwards is the review meeting. The conduct of this meeting again varies dramatically between the different levels of leadership quality. At level +1, this meeting tends to be conducted for management rather than leadership purposes and is often a demotivating experience which may not even happen, perhaps for that reason. The leader passes judgment on the reviewee, who may speak very little. The only focus given is past performance, positive and perhaps especially negative. At level +2, there'll be a future as well as a past focus, and the self-image of the reviewee is brought into what therefore becomes a two-way interaction that results in goals and ways forward that can provide the basis of the next review. Also in level +2, in contrast to level +1, any poor performance is managed as and when it happens, so that at reviews, whether formal or informal, there are no surprises. In level +3, the interaction becomes enjoyable and creative for both parties, with informal reviews becoming a routine method of sustaining and developing the working relationship, as well as performance. Here's the full list of downward interactions, all of which have a very different form and flavour between the three levels, as indeed do the further 7 interactions within the upward, peer and external relationships. The Mitchell model brings a consistent approach and joined-up terminology to the study and execution of these interactions, an integration that cannot be achieved when they're studied separately through separate or fragmented approaches for each of the 360 relationships. We'll see the importance of this as we study the process of growth in video 6. So we've considered the individual context of leadership and culture, how responsibility connects to each of the 4 relationships, and how these vary between the 6 levels of quality. As we'll see in videos 3, 4 and 5, these responsibilities also apply, perhaps surprisingly, in the psychological, organizational, citizenship and government contexts. So, how can interested organizational leaders and decision makers find out more about the Mitchell model and its potential value to them personally and for their organizations? There are 3 ways. First, take time to study and assimilate all 7 of these introductory videos, which will help you already to get some bearings about where your leadership and organizational quality currently stands. Secondly, you can apply to join one of our series of International Leadership Weeks that are held in Switzerland, China and Bermuda each year. These give interested CEOs, professional managing partners and government officials a unique opportunity to explore the Mitchell model in a practical way, while networking with counterparts from other organizations with similar interests. And thirdly, if you'd like to have direct contact through an initial phone call or meeting, please email me at the address shown and I'll be happy to respond.